The last time we were all together, I was rudely interrupted by the Chromebook itself, saying that it would not record any further because I had run out of storage space. So I spent the night trying to get all that cleaned up, and then life set in. That's why it's been so long. Further on scapegoating, the story that I wanted to tell when I was so rudely interrupted is from my own family, and I think it's most likely a prime example of the cruelties of taking the golden child and suddenly plunging them into the role of a scapegoat. And it's very poignant. And when I look back, I feel so ashamed. I feel so terribly ashamed. But I don't want to say but, because that negates responsibility. However, I was a kid. And I knew it was a cruel situation for this other person. I was so bent on survival in that family that, quite frankly, it didn't matter the way it should have mattered. There were times when it mattered, but most of the time it did not. Most of the time it was like, as long as I'm okay, kids can be mean. So, when I was 8, my mother had what used to be referred to as a nervous breakdown. 1972 was a very bad year for her. It was as if she had been piled with boulders, one on top of the other, on the back of her neck, and her back and her neck finally broke. I mean, she carried all that she could carry, and my grandmother had just died, and my father had done something viciously cruel. It was just the end. She had gone as far as she could go. So her elder sister, she was this particular sister was the middle of the 3 sisters. My mother was the youngest. My aunt swoops in, and she's like, okay, I've talked to Bob, that was her husband, and we've decided that we're going to give you this old clinker Toyota that he's working on all the time, and we're going to find you a little mobile home that we can pull up somewhere, and you're just going to take it easy for 6 months. We'll take care of everything. You're just going to take it easy for 6 months. We'll pay your expenses, blah, blah, blah. And it was a very kind gesture. I think everybody would agree it was an unusually kind gesture. So my aunt and my uncle had one child. This was not my aunt's only child. She had an older child that she had given up when she married this uncle. This child that they had between them was a girl, is a woman. And I don't know that I would particularly say that she was spoiled. I truly don't think that she was spoiled. I think a lot of people thought she was spoiled. That was not when I look back, I realized that was just not the reality. I'm sorry, I forgot to turn off my phone, people. But anyway, I'm going to turn it down here. So, she was the only child in that particular unit. her mother had always made her clothes. Her mother could sew beautifully. She could stand there and look at a dress shop window and go home and make the clothes that she had seen in the dress shop window. She probably could have been a very successful seamstress. She might have even made it as a clothing business. I mean, she was that talented. I think that bothered a lot of people, because when this particular cousin was little, she was always dressed to the nines. This girl never got outside and got dirty. She did not get out. Excuse me. In the first place, she was too feminine. In the second place, she was always dressed to the nines. I mean, we're talking the 1950s with the crinoline skirts, the net petticoats that stood out half a mile on all sides. And, you know, she always had her bangs. They put her bangs in pin curls, and she had her long braids. Her hair was down past her waist, and they carefully braided her hair every day, not in the way that people do it today. We didn't do French braids and stuff back then, but, you know, she had these long braids, and she always had taffeta or silk ribbons at the end of her braids. And people didn't like that. They didn't like that she was always dressed like she came out of a magazine, and they didn't like that her mother, at any rate, had a lot of time to concentrate on her and do things with her. This particular cousin grew up doing really interesting things with her mother, like they had this mutual fascination for Fabergé eggs, and so on holidays, if they wanted to give somebody a really special gift, they would poke holes in either end of an egg, and they'd blow the yolk and the white out, and they'd make little miniature Fabergé eggs with, I mean, they were gorgeous. They were stunning. Very talented people. They flipped homes before before this became a thing. I mean, like, yeah, 50 years before this became a thing, they were flipping homes. So anyway, you know, her mother seemed to care about her and concentrated a lot of attention on her, got her piano lessons, what have you. And did she think a lot of herself, the child? Yeah, she did. She thought a lot of herself. Of course she did. She was kind of the nucleus around which her mother revolved. So, as she got older, she developed what I can only describe as narcissistic qualities. And I don't blame her upbringing for that. I do not blame people's upbringing for narcissistic qualities. I don't think a person's environment has much, if anything, to do with personality disorders. I think it's just the way people are. And so, as she got older and it was harder to control her behavior, these qualities came out. I mean, I can remember her literally and figuratively standing in front of the mirror and saying, "I'm the most beautiful girl in the world." And boy, you better believe she was the most beautiful girl in the world, because if you didn't, you had a fight on your hands and it wasn't going to be pretty. She really was that way. Her mother indulged that. Again, I don't blame her mother for it, but her mother indulged it. For some bizarre reason, by 1972, I was 8 and this cousin was 18. And she was still living at home. She had always been the golden child. Her dad didn't seem to pay that much attention to her. Really, he didn't. As a matter of fact, he seemed not to like her. And again, I don't blame her for that. I don't blame her because her dad didn't seem to like her. I think that he just was not a very... I think he couldn't relate to her. I think that was... He grew up in the oil fields of Oklahoma. He went down to the oil fields in Texas, and he was he was very big on physical labor and getting your hands dirty and living by the sweat of your brow. And this daughter was not that way. It's like I said, even as a kid, she never got dirty. So I think he just couldn't relate to her more than anything else. So when we moved into the mobile home that they parked a few miles from where they lived, for some odd reason, her mother began negatively comparing her to me. I mean, immediately. No ceremony, no segueing into this. It's just all of a sudden she's negatively comparing her to me. I can remember her saying, "Why aren't you willing to help the way your cousin is? Your cousin is always so willing to help. You never lift a finger around here. It's always your cousin who's helping. You know, why won't you do any of the work that needs to be? You never scrub bathrooms, you never mop floors, you never dust, you never do any of that stuff. And your cousin over here, she's always so willing to, and I can remember them saying that about me, she's a people pleaser." Well, my cousin wasn't a people pleaser. It wasn't in her nature. She was self-centered. She was very egocentric. She was always very kind and loving to me up to a point. It didn't get bad between us until I was about 21, I think. I don't know. I look back and it's like, why suddenly was she picking on her own daughter for no reason at all? Negatively comparing. I mean, at every opportunity, negatively comparing her to me. And in the first place, we were 10 years apart. What is up with that? Why would you compare cousins who are 10 years apart? That doesn't even make any sense. And I can remember her for years. She would browbeat my cousin over these qualities that she said that I possessed, and insisting that my cousin did not possess. And I can remember my poor cousin just being in tears. It was horrible. And there were times when her mother would be picking on her, making everything so atrociously and needlessly miserable for that poor young woman. And she had never been allowed to have friends. She had never been allowed to have friends. And the only person she had to turn to in her distress was the person who had been moved into what was formerly her position. And bizarrely enough, she didn't start resenting me until we were adults. I really do not think that this cousin began to genuinely resent me until we were adults. And I loved her. I loved her a lot. When you see me, when you see my outgoing personality, my gregariousness, she actually cultivated that in me. She was not a shy person. Believe it or not, people, I was so shy that if I was introduced to a stranger, I was looking around for the bathroom. Where's the bathroom? I'm going to throw up. I got to find there it is. And, she would not allow me to be shy. She would get behind me and she would deliberately take me to unfamiliar people, and she would get behind me and she would gently push me by my shoulder blades and deliberately involve me in the conversations. And I'm grateful to her for that. I mean, for an 18-year-old girl to treat an 8-year-old cousin, to be determined to cultivate her qualities and teach her the social graces, if you will. I mean, not many girls of 18 would really care that much. So she had really wonderful qualities. She had really wonderful, and I emulated her. So, I cannot imagine. No, I can't imagine. I can't actually imagine. And I will expand on this probably in another video. How long have we gone here? Oh, we're a little over 15 minutes. We're not too bad. I'm not going to launch into the other story. But I cannot imagine how traumatic that was for her. She had spent 18 years being the very center of her mother's universe. And then suddenly this, she knew me, but she was not raised in the same area that I was raised in. So we didn't know each other that well until the year that they moved us into that trailer. And to be 18 years old and to always have been the center of everything in your family, and then have this fat little obnoxious little cousin come into the arena, and suddenly the spotlight is directed onto that obnoxious little cousin, and you're just nothing. You're just nothing. And not only are you nothing, you are reminded all of the time of all of your faults, and you need to be a willing worker like your cousin, and you need to care about other people's comfort like your cousin, and you need to be a hard worker like your cousin, and why don't you get out there with your dad and help him overhaul the motors like your cousin does. And it's like, I don't know why she didn't hate my insides. But I don't believe she did. She was a pianist. And I think I've said this before. She wanted to be a concert pianist. She never had that talent. She could have been one of the world's greatest instructors, though. I tell you, she could have been a world famous piano instructor. And at the time, I felt like she was dragging me off to the Van Cliburn competitions. I even went to the master's classes with her at TCU. I can't remember that woman's name who was the artist in resident at TCU. She was an Austrian. She had been a World War II concentration camp prisoner. I cannot remember that woman's name. I mean, fabulous, flamboyant woman. Oh, she was wonderful. I got the pleasure and the privilege of being able to, I'll try to look up her name to remind you guys of who she was, but you talk about privilege. I was privileged because of my cousin's interest in developing me. And again, she was hardly more than a kid herself, but she taught piano. And when I was 14, she took me down to the little dress shop. This family had a dress shop in Keene, and they had a dress shop there in Burleson, and they had a collection of voile dresses. I'm 14 years old. Okay, the rule when I was a kid was you have 2 outfits every season. One outfit you wear out. The other outfit you wear at home. Deal with the funny shirt, right? so she toodles me down to that swanky little dress shop. And she takes me to the rack. There's this huge, gigantic, round rack of all of these voile dresses. And they were in all of these gorgeous pastel colors. And she said, you can have 3. She took her piano teaching money. And she spent a fortune buying voile dresses for me. And I got one in blue, I got one in peach, and I got the other one in spring green. And they were stiff. They didn't have like the stiff petticoats. We were way beyond that in the 70s, right? But they did stand out a little bit because they were voile and they were very full. And so she gets me tickets to the finals at the Van Cliburn competition. She had gotten me, they were the finals, and she got me the ticket to the concert after, all of the contestants had been awarded and all of that good stuff at the convention center. And I never will forget, we're walking down the hall at Ed Landreth, and we're making our way back to the auditorium, and Jeffrey Kahane, who was then with the Tokyo String Quartet, comes down the hall in the opposite direction. And he was a very small man, very diminutive man. He was so cute. Oh my, he was so cute. And he came down that hall and he was staring at me, and he kind of goes like this. And I did not see it. Here I am, I'm shy. Jeffrey Kahane's looking at me, and I'm thinking, where's the bathroom? I gotta go throw up. Where's the bathroom? And she came running up behind me, and she pulled on my sash and undid my sash. And I turned around and I looked at her in some disgust, and she turns me back around by the shoulders. She starts tying my sash, and she goes, I saw him winking at you. She was wonderful. She was wonderful. I mean, how wonderful was that you're that good to somebody who has literally displaced you. I had long since become the golden child. And, by now it's been, 6 years that I have displaced her as the golden child. And she's now the scapegoat. She's been the scapegoat for 6 years, and yet she would do that for me. And she when her parents picked us up that night, she was all full of Jeffrey Kahane, just thought she was so cute, and I was so proud of her. And, it's tragic. It is so tragic, because I can honestly tell you, I loved her so much, and I emulated her. I wanted to be like her. I'm 61 years old, and I haven't seen her in over 30 years, and I honestly think that there's hardly a week that goes by that I don't wonder, is she okay? Because the dynamics in the family just blew us wide apart. And that's what happens. That's what happens when the golden child is thrust into the role of scapegoat. It destroys their world. It destroys their whole world. And she didn't deserve it. She didn't deserve it. Yeah, could she be obnoxious? Was she egocentric? Was she as vain as all get out? Yeah, she was. But she cared about me. And she cared about me when she had absolutely no reason to care about me. And the person who is talking to you as if you're really standing or sitting across the table with me, I'm not going to say I'm her product, but what you see and what you hear, that is her influence. That is so her influence. because at some point she broke me of looking around for the nearest bathroom. And I'm grateful to her for that. And I'm going to do another video, and I'm going to explain one of the reasons why I'm so grateful. I mean, she taught me skills that have stood me in very, very, very good stead. And in another video, I'm going to elaborate on that. But, you know, these people, these suns around which all of the little planets are revolving, they know when they do this stuff. It's not an accident. It wasn't an accident that her mother did to her what she did. And it wasn't an accident that into adulthood her mother blew our relationship apart. We had a good friendship. We had a wonderful friendship, and her mother blew it 6 ways to Sunday. And that's what happens. That's how destructive these narcissistic family systems are. I'd like to say that you can heal completely, and of course I believe you can, but there are always going to be scars. There are always going to be scars. And that's a tragedy, because it doesn't have to be that way. And let's see, how long has it been? I'm going to try not to keep you guys hideously long. Oh, I've done well. I've done almost 27 minutes. I love you guys. I'm going to do another video, and thank you all so much.